2 races, 2 second places. Lewis Hamilton walked out of Canada and Monaco with back-to-back podiums for the first time since he wore Mercedes silver. Ferrari has a role it has not felt in years. And this week the team is bringing a brand new front wing to Barcelona, the one track every engineer in the paddock uses to judge whether a car is actually any good. That was June 7th. By June 14th, Hamilton wants the one thing Ferrari has not pulled off since 2024, a win. A year ago, none of this looked possible. Hamilton was living through the worst season of his career, and it was not close. He finished 2025 without a single Grand Prix win, without even one podium across the whole year, and behind his own teammate Charles Leclerc by 86 points. The move to Ferrari was meant to be the perfect final chapter. The 7-time world champion finally pulling on the red, chasing the one prize that had always slipped through his fingers, the title he could never win in a Ferrari. For most of his first season, it played out like a mistake. He could not understand the car beneath him. He fought it through every corner, chasing a feeling that simply would not come. On the worst weekends, the most winning driver in the history of the sport looked like a man quietly making peace with the end. Then the season turned. Now he sits second in the World Championship, his highest spot in the standings in almost 5 years. Same driver, same red car, a completely different story. And it began in Canada. Hamilton lined up 5th in Montreal and spent the afternoon hunting. Lap after lap, he cut into the gap ahead, until late in the race only one car stood between him and the second step of the podium, Max Verstappen. On lap 62 of 68, Hamilton swept up to the first corner and went around the outside, the long way, the line that ends in the wall if the timing is even slightly wrong. It stuck. He took the place, took second, and crossed the line with his best result since the day he signed for Ferrari. For the first time in 18 months, he sounded like the driver the sport remembered. I love that hunt. That's what my whole life has been about since I was a kid. Behind the scenes, the team had moved mountains to put him there. And he had quietly changed something in himself, stepping away from Ferrari's simulator and trusting raw data and his own gut instead. That same way had already brought him a podium in China earlier in the year. In Canada, it brought him a fight he had not been part of in a very long time. 2 weeks later, Monaco handed him another. The race barely held together. It stopped twice behind red flags, started again into chaos, and tore the order to pieces. Verstappen, starting from the front row, was gone before the end of the opening lap with an engine failure. Leclerc, running exactly where a home hero dreams of running, threw it all away in the wall at the final corner after the late restart. Through all of it, Hamilton simply refused to make a mistake. He brought his Ferrari home second, a little over 6 seconds behind the runaway leader, and picked up his 8th career podium on the streets of Monaco, level with Ayrton Senna for podium finishes around the city. 2 podiums in a row, his first such run since the Mercedes days. To him, it was proof of a role, a sign the team was building toward something. He did not pretend it was a Ferrari win. Mercedes had done it again, and Ferrari, for now, could not quite keep up. The change in Hamilton traces back to a change on the pit wall. Earlier in the season, he split from Riccardo Adami, the race engineer who had walked him through a rough start to his Ferrari career, with Adami moving across to the driver academy and the test program. Into the seat came Carlo Santi, a Maranello old hand who had once run Kimi Raikkonen's car and had been running the team's engineering back at the factory. At first it was called a short-term fix, with an outside name lined up to take the role for good. Then it simply stopped being short-term. The two of them clicked, the results followed, and Santi stayed. Within weeks, Hamilton had a name for him, his Italian Bono, a nod to Pete Bonington, the engineer whose calm voice had guided him through every championship at Mercedes. The change went deeper than the radio. The car's setup was a whole new thing, night and day from the machine he had fought all of last year. A man who had spent 12 months fighting his own car suddenly drove like he believed in every part of it. And now Ferrari hands him something new. The car comes to Barcelona with a new front wing, a changed floor, and the first real change to the body of the car all season. It is a tighter, more focused package than the huge set of changes Ferrari rolled out in Miami, and it comes with a job beyond simply finding lap time. The Miami front wing had not delivered what the team hoped for. Barcelona is where Ferrari sets out to put that right, and where Hamilton hopes to turn 2 second places into something bigger. The moving rear wing comes back too, in a leaner, lower drag form, the version the rules had kept off the car in the tight streets of Monaco. Barcelona is the place to find out if any of it works. For years, this track was Formula One's testing ground, the track every team brought its car to in winter to learn the honest truth about it. The lap asks every possible question. Slow corners that demand traction, fast corners that demand nerve, a long sweeping stretch that loads the tyres harder than almost anywhere on the calendar, and a long straight running down to the line. There is nowhere to hide here. Turn 3 is a long, flat-out right-hander that leans on the front tyres until they cry for mercy. The surface is rough enough to chew through rubber across a stint. And the run down to the first corner, all 600 metres of it, is where horsepower writes its name into the lap time. That last detail is the problem because the Ferrari has a hole in it, and the hole is power. The car is really good in the places that suit it. It finds strong traction out of slow corners. It carries real grip through the middle of a lap, and it is kind to its tyres over a long run. Those are the things that let it shine somewhere like Monaco, where raw engine power barely matters and the car gets to lean on everything it does best. But on the straights it loses ground, and the longer the straight, the more it loses. Monaco made it look good. Barcelona will not. That is the wall waiting for Hamilton in Spain. The engine is down, and there is no hiding from the order. Red Bull's engine is the strongest on the grid, Mercedes sits second, and Ferrari trail them both. Hamilton has never tried to pretend otherwise. The team has been given room to chase that gap down, but closing it is the work of 8 to 10 months, not a single week. Leclerc has already measured the cost, losing close to half a second on one long straight to the way the car spends its energy. Take the power gap away, and Ferrari is right there in the fight. For one weekend, at this track of all tracks, that gap is going nowhere. There is something else about Barcelona. Something personal, because no driver on the grid today knows this place the way Lewis Hamilton does. For most of his career, this track was his kingdom. He has won here 6 times, a record matched by only one man in history, Michael Schumacher, including 5 years in a row between 2017 and 2021. He has stood on the podium here 12 times. He took pole position here 6 times, and one of them, in 2021, was the 100th pole of his career, a mark no driver had ever reached before him. When Mercedes ruled Formula One, this was the track that crowned them, and Hamilton was the king of it. But Barcelona has handed him disaster too. In 2016, locked in a title fight with his teammate Nico Rosberg, the two Mercedes drivers crashed on the opening lap and took each other out of the race. The very first corner of a championship, Rosberg would go on to win by 5 points. The crash was so costly that the two of them, tied by a deal they had signed, split the repair bill between them, somewhere around €720,000, half each. And while the two men fighting for the title sat in the gravel, a teenage Max Verstappen drove off into the distance to take his first ever Grand Prix win on his very first race for Red Bull, the youngest winner the sport had ever seen. That is the strange weight this place carries for him, his greatest weekends and one of his most painful, all written on the same stretch of Catalan tarmac. If you want the real story behind every race weekend on this channel, the version that goes past the headline, subscribe. Every round gets the same treatment. And then came last year. In his first Spanish Grand Prix in red, the 6-time winner of this race qualified and finished 6th, his worst result here in nearly 10 years, beaten by his own teammate. Leclerc took the podium that day. Hamilton trailed home behind him with a car whose rear end gave him nothing. The king of Barcelona had become a passenger at it. Ferrari's own history here runs the same way. Glory a long time ago and letdowns ever since. No team has won more often at this track than Ferrari, 8 wins in all, stretching from Schumacher's brilliant drive in the rain in 1996, his first win for the team, won by the better part of a minute, through 4 straight in the early 2000s. But the last time a Ferrari won at Barcelona, Fernando Alonso was driving it, the grandstands were roaring for a home hero, and the year was 2013. It would turn out to be the final win of Alonso's whole career. 13 years have passed, and Ferrari has not won here since. The near misses cut deep. In 2022, Leclerc put his Ferrari on pole and led with ease, only for the engine to fail beneath him and hand the win to Verstappen. It took until last year for the team to even reach this podium again, when Leclerc came home third. Progress, but a long way from the top step. And this, more than anywhere, is the track that decides whether an upgrade is real. Barcelona has a habit of splitting the parts that work from the parts that only worked in a wind tunnel. When Mercedes were drowning in their bouncing, shaking car back in 2022, it was a new flaw brought to Barcelona that finally fixed it. For the first time all season, the car ran down the straight without hammering itself apart, and that single weekend became the start of their whole comeback. Barcelona gave them the answer. Because Barcelona always gives an answer. Bring something that works, and it shows on the timing screens within an hour. Bring something that only looks good on a computer, and there is nowhere to bury it. Even Ferrari's own team boss will not promise more than a step. The mood from the top is careful, good signs from the last 2 weekends, but a mountain of work still to do. A team set on keeping its eyes on itself rather than the cars ahead, and a quiet hope that Spain is a step forward. A step, not a win. The championship Hamilton races into on Sunday is brutal. Mercedes leads the constructors' standings on 244 points, with Ferrari second on 165, a 79-point gap that keeps growing rather than closing. The reason sits in the second Mercedes, and he is 18 years old. Kimi Antonelli has won the last 5 Grand Prix in a row, a teenager rewriting the front of the field in his first real run at it, and he leads the Drivers' Championship on 156 points. In Monaco, he did it in the most complete way possible, leading from pole to flag. The teenager is doing more than winning, he is burying the field. Hamilton holds second on 90, and even that is only as close as it is because George Russell, in the other silver car, has slipped into a cold streak of his own. Across the season, Hamilton's climb is easy to trace. 4th in Australia, 3rd in China, into the points in Japan, a quieter 6th in Miami. Then, second and second across Canada and Monaco, the run that carries him into the top 2 of the championship for the first time since Abu Dhabi in 2021. Leclerc sits right alongside him, the 2 Ferraris split by almost nothing. Across the rest of the grid, the usual order has been flipped on its head this year. McLaren won this very race last season, a 1-2 finish, the first team other than Mercedes or Red Bull to win at Barcelona since Alonso did it for Ferrari. 12 months on, the reigning champions have fallen to 3rd in the standings, undone by breakdowns that keep dragging both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri out of races and a car that is running a few tenths short. Red Bull sits 4th. The order everyone took for granted has been turned upside down, and through all of it, for all the progress in red, Ferrari has not won a Grand Prix since Mexico in 2024. That is the dry spell Hamilton drove to Maranello to end. And the new front wing could be the lever that shifts it. A car that corners better claws back some of what it loses on the straights, and at a track like Barcelona, that could be the difference between 4th place and the podium. For the first time in a long while, Hamilton comes to a race weekend with real reason to believe the car beneath him can carry him there. There is one last twist before any of it begins. On the very morning the new upgrade first turns a wheel, Hamilton will not be the one driving it. Ferrari hands first practice to its junior, Dino Beganovic, to meet the rule that forces every team to run a rookie in a session, and most of the leading teams are doing the same across the weekend in Spain. Beganovic loves this place, especially since the old chicane was torn out and the fast-flowing final corners were brought back, a stretch where you really feel the speed and the G-forces. But the driver who needs every lap this weekend is watching from the garage, while someone else takes the very first read on the upgrade he is counting on. Everything then comes down to Sunday. If Ferrari outqualifies a Mercedes or beats one in the race, it becomes the first hard proof that the gap is really closing. If the upgrade falls flat the way the Miami package did, the doubts come flooding back. And the thing that could truly change this championship, the engine work Ferrari has been allowed to chase, does not arrive in Spain. It comes later in the season. Barcelona is the first real test of the climb, not the end of it. So it returns to where it began. June 14th, a new front wing and a win Ferrari has not tasted since 2024. The roll is real. The car finally listens. The engineer finally fits. And the long straight is still there, waiting at the end of every lap, measuring exactly how much ground is left to make up. This is the track that once crowned Lewis Hamilton 6 times over, the track that broke his heart in 2016, the track that brought him low last year in red. Barcelona has always told him the truth. On Sunday, it tells him how close the front really is. If you want the honest version of every race weekend, not the noise, subscribe and stick around. The next one is already on its way.